All right, ladies and gents, welcome aboard to the Captain Crypto Show. Tonight, it's another episode of our cryptocurrency roundtable, what I call the Captain's Council. So tonight's a special episode because we're actually going to be coming to you live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So who's us tonight? It's me, Captain Crypto. Name's Kylan Hurt, and I'm a front-end engineer for Edge. And Edge is a company that works in the cryptocurrency space, and we create mobile applications for securing people's private data. So within cryptocurrency, that specifically means storing their private keys to their cryptocurrency. So we have a mobile wallet for Bitcoin available on iOS and Android, and we're coming out with our new Edge wallet within the coming weeks. So stay tuned. And the other co-host tonight, we have Brett, a.k.a. Maverick, of the Edge team.
Yo.
And he does business development for our team at Edge. And he, in general, is very familiar with who's who within the world of cryptocurrency, right?
I try.
He tries.
Yeah.
All right, and then our other co-host tonight is our resident day trader over there. Tay, how's it going?
What's going on? I wouldn't say day trader, more like swing opportunity.
Swing opportunist. There you go.
A swinger, basic sexually oriented. Okay. We're not going there.
One of us might be. I don't know. Okay, so tonight there have been a lot of developments within cryptocurrency, and I guess the biggest one to start off with is the recent plummet in cryptocurrency prices during the last week or two. In December, Bitcoin had hit an all-time high of about 20,000. And I remember when we were seeing drops recently, drops of about 30%, something like that, people would say, oh, that's nothing. Cryptocurrency's seen 70% drops before. So from 20,000 to about 5,800, I think, was the lowest that I've seen during the last 48 hours. That is somewhere around a 70% drop, maybe even a little bit more than that. So I guess, Brett, I'll start off with you. The first question is, should we be concerned? Are the fundamentals of cryptocurrency, are they damaged goods right now, or will they spring back to life?
Yeah, the fundamentals are stronger than ever. We've got multiple new on-ramps into crypto. We've got some big announcements from players like Samsung that are getting into mining. We have, like what we're going to talk about later in the show, the Senate, the recent Senate hearing on cryptocurrency and blockchain. So, and we have the deployment of the Lightning Network, which, judging from the development community around Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, they're really coming online, downloading some of the Lightning Network software, running nodes, funding channels. Right, there's a lot of excitement. So the fundamentals, since I've been in crypto, are stronger than ever. What happened, and the best explanation of what happened, is there was just more sellers than buyers at a certain point in time. And the two key words are weak hands, right? We have a lot of people that are just selling and dumping some crypto on the market, and we also have probably some whales in there taking some profits, maybe consolidate, moving into other assets or other cryptocurrencies. But to me, it's a healthy drawdown, something that we've talked about before and expected. And one of the best predictions I saw recently was from one of the best thinkers and investors in the space, Ari Paul, who is I think he's the chief investment officer of Block Tower Capital, and he was basically saying that there's a good chance, and he says a month ago or a couple weeks ago that Bitcoin will trade at 6,000 and 50,000 in 2018. Just because we have a lot of new people that don't really know what they're buying. The technology we have is pretty much exponential. Every new user that comes in really beefs up the value of the network. And then we have a wall of institutional money coming in. So the fundamentals are incredibly strong. I've never been really more sure of it, and I've been pretty sure in the past. And, everything's a go. We just had a little correction where obviously there was a lot of people that bought stuff that they weren't willing to hold on to for more than a month. They thought it would just triple overnight, and that's not how things work.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big takeaways here, at least from my perspective, is since I work in the industry and I've been kind of a long-time advocate for cryptocurrency, I believe in the long-term prospects. To see it go from 20,000 down to 5,800 and know that people are still selling at $5,800, at $6,000, on one hand, I want to say that's completely insane, but on the other hand, if you have rent to pay and you've already doubled your money in the last 6 months or more, then maybe that actually does make sense for the few people out there who are apparently doing that. Tay, what do you think? People are selling at that price?
People are selling that price just scared. Weak hands, you know what I mean? Like no
Get out, weak hands.
You know, no cojones. They just don't realize the basics of investing in a game like this. I think a lot of people come in and they think it's like the stock market where they're going to put some money in and then watch it grow for a few years at a slow rate. But we saw what it did over the holidays. It just took off and skyrocketed. And a lot of people got in probably above $10,000, and now it's going lower. I know personally some friends that have family members that got in above 10,000, got shook out, got back in, and got shook out again. You know, and I'm like, and I personally told them, wait until the end of February and see what happens. Like, if that's the short term. The long term is you shouldn't be investing in anything that you have to pull out within a year.
Right.
And then also rule number 2 is you shouldn't be coming in with the amount of money that you have to worry about it.
Exactly.
Because there's plenty of people that have whatever you can spend in a weekend, or, you know, I'd say a lot of people spend $100 per day on a weekend, going to bars, going out, when you really add it all up, right? So what do you think? Like, you can just sacrifice one weekend of not going out, staying home, and then put that amount of money in? Or whatever you got to sacrifice. You sacrificed it already. If that money goes to zero, which is the lowest it can go in crypto, is you just lose your money. You're not going to owe anybody money.
You were going to consume the money anyway.
Right. Unless you're, you know, taking out a credit loan, which they're trying to make illegal, which should be illegal anyway. I don't know why, you know, you're betting on a speculative asset and then you're going to take credit against it. That's not a good move. So if you're coming with money you have that you're willing to lose in this game of crypto, just wait it out. You know, like it's been proven to work over the last 8 years. People that wait out the dips or even buy the dips if you want to turbocharge your profiting process and then move on. A year minimum if you're new to this game. A year minimum.
Yeah. Like they say, don't spend more money than you're willing to lose. And I always tell people to look at it as a long-term investment, because in the short term, you can get absolutely wrecked. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So one thing that I was thinking about was that a lot of our big advocates for cryptocurrency say, okay, when there's hard times, even when there's good times, hodl, right? So just keep on holding on to your cryptocurrency. And I was kind of had like a shower thought the other day, and I was thinking, well, because I'm one of those people who just tends to not stress about things, but just to hold onto the cryptocurrency, try not to time things correctly, because that's a little bit of a risky game. But it did kind of occur to me that maybe if there's a good amount of people out there just holding on for dear life, maybe that's not necessarily a good thing. Maybe that leads to volatility, because when the price goes up and it starts to go up crazy, if you're just holding on, then you are not providing any downward pressure on the price. Also, when it goes down, you won't have any money laying around from what you sold earlier in order to buy and put upward pressure back on the price. I'm curious if you guys think that
I think that's a
it's a stretch.
Yeah. It's a stretch, and it's also depending on your time horizon. You know, like if I'd say
and your individual situation, right? It's all situational.
Yes.
But there needs any type of money needs to strike a balance between hodling or hoarding and volatility, or not velocity of the money. So the money changing hands, but it also needs that support base which hodlers are providing, right? Yeah. And that's what a reserve currency like the U.S. dollar does. There are a lot of hodlers out there, right? A lot of central banks that hold dollars or gold, right? And then it's also used when people want to exchange it. There is some velocity of that gold or that paper money. And Bitcoin will go through the same, it'll be subject to the same forces. But what we've seen over the last, I guess, couple months, right? And I've been following a metric that I think gives me a pretty good feel what maybe like the true price of Bitcoin is, I guess, to smooth out some of the volatility, but the 200-day moving average.
Right.
And Trace Meyer has used this.
Yeah,
and it tracks pretty well to Metcalfe's law as well, which is basically a law that, or a concept that basically says that in any telecommunications network, and the internet or the phone or Bitcoin would basically be described as, because every new node on the system in Bitcoin makes the
network
the
effect.
network that much more valuable, right? And the 200-day moving average, I think, tracks that pretty well, and it's been around 7,000 to 9,000 over the last couple, 6-7 months.
Right.
So I think I see a healthy price in the 7,000 to 10,000 range, and past that we've seen a
stretch.
low information buyer coming in the sense,
Right.
and low knowledge buyer, where they basically got onboarded and got swept in emotionally because of all of the, the media zeitgeist and the hoopla around Bitcoin. So they rode that wave up,
Yep.
bought all the way at 19, and then basically it's come down all the way back to that kind of 200-day moving average. And that's what I see a healthy consolidation around, 7 to 10 grand, or we'll see that. And we're poised for another huge ramp up with institutional money, which is patient money, right? Smart money that has been watching these gyrations and they're just around the corner to make some big moves, right? And they like that a lot of weak hands have gotten shooken out.
Yep,
we've had
Bitcoin.
some really good. We just had a really good press conference in the United States Senate. So I mean, like always, our outlook is fucking bullish, right?
Yeah, we'll get to that hearing in a little bit. But so I was kind of curious because, like you said, Metcalfe's law. The more of these corrections that I go through, the more I think it might be accurate to to forecast cryptocurrency as a sort of, I don't know if exponential is the right term.
It is, no, 100%. It's exponential.
Right.
That's why a lot of these pundits and a lot of these institutional types on TV will never understand the moves, because this is not a stock, right? You don't need a stockbroker. This is you don't need a stockbroker to get a telephone, right? And as soon as someone puts a telephone in their house, they add to the value of their network, right? If you have one telephone in the world, it's useless. If only one person has Bitcoin, it's useless. You start onboarding people, and each new user makes the value of that network move exponentially, right? So you're going to get these huge moves.
Also, too, I think the fact that it's hard to describe, right? So traditional media, it's, just going back to 1992, 1995, when they were trying to describe the internet and email.
It's the same movie all over again.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's very hard, difficult to describe, and it pushes viewers away. I'm sure they know they can sit on there and describe Bitcoin over 1 hour or 30 minutes, but they'll just see their viewer count drop.
Not if they talk about price. They
Right.
They
And
get a
that's-
lot of clicks if they start going into
and that's
the
what they
mechanics.
do. And that's
right?
what they do.
Then
And
people-
they also know what is the easiest thing about this to draw in viewers. Well, when the price goes crazy down or crazy up.
Yeah.
So that's the only time they're going to talk about it on traditional media. And I feel like a lot of people are getting most of their information from those sources, don't know that they're a business and they're looking at you and how you view it and when you view it as their source of income.
Well, you're talking about viewers that are still in the matrix, so to
Right,
speak,
yeah.
right? They just eat the blue pill every day for breakfast, lunch, and
Yes.
dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, it does make me think that, and this is something that I've noticed, especially during the last year, as I've kind of focused more on price of cryptocurrency, is that there is kind of that natural tendency for humans to follow the hype cycle, whether it's news, whether it's prices. You can even say that there are metaphors within music, right? You have a song that starts off slowly, it hits a crescendo, so to speak.
We're all in a global dance. Some of us are just very out of tune, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of us are offbeat.
Life is
Yeah.
a dance. Dude.
So I am curious, before we move on to the next topic, when it comes to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, people, when they talk about cryptocurrency prices, obviously they focus on Bitcoin. And I'm curious if you guys think with the scaling issues, now granted the scaling issues have not been as bad, I guess you could say, the last week or two, because things have cooled off, right? So there's less people trying to use the network, which means the transaction fees are going down, confirmation times going down. But I'm curious, if it continues to have scaling issues during 2018, do you see that creating a significant downward pressure, not just on Bitcoin's price, but on the price of other cryptocurrencies?
No. Bitcoin will always have, for the entire life. And I was actually listening to Andreas talk about this, and it's good to get his perspective on the history of the internet. And he was talking about how the internet has always failed to scale because the goalposts keep moving. So before, they had basically a Usenet application. That was basically the first internet chat application that basically only extreme nerds like Andreas Antonopoulos and academics around the world could basically communicate on. Then it got to a point where it couldn't handle all the traffic, and they had to scale it, right? And they moved to email, and then email got so much, usage, they needed to scale that, right? And then we needed online video and attachments to email, and that we needed to scale that. So at every point there will be these, as people use it more and more, there will be these, so to speak, these
choke points.
Choke points, right, where the current system can't handle the amount of load it's taking on, but that's where the engineers come in, and they start solving these problems.
Right.
And he was talking about how the internet has basically failed to scale the entire time, yet has scaled.
Yes.
So what we're seeing right now is, you look at the discussion around Lightning Network or Bitcoin Cash, people on both sides are just basically hating on their scaling solution it's just the beginning. And we'll see these things worked out. Multiple engineering teams work on different solutions, and there will be a winner or maybe multiple winners, multiple types of scaling implementations, right? We have Casper on Ethereum. Yep. So this will always be, when you're on the bleeding edge of tech, there will always be these issues, right? That's never going away. As long as Bitcoin is alive, there will always be these scaling issues, and yet people will be talking about scaling issues when Bitcoin's $3 million a coin. Right, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's not or whatever. There's these problems." Well, yeah, that's where engineers come in and fix it, or the market kind of readjusts.
Yeah,
you're using too many network resources.
It's a negative feedback system where if there's scaling issues, then just less people will use
exactly.
it, and then you'll have less
get away, and it gives
issues.
the engineers time to reload, revamp, re-engineer some things, and try some things out.
Do you guys think that your average institutional investor knows anything about these scaling issues? Or
yeah. Well, the average, not really.
Or whoever's
but people, the people that have been covering the space, and some of the I've read some material put out by investment banks, and they are very much aware of Lightning Network, on-chain scale, the debate between on-chain versus off-chain. They don't really have a say in the debate because they're just doing their jobs as financial. They're just smart guys kind of looking in, kind of how I'm not an engineer. I don't know how to scale these systems, but I can kind of summarize and,
when you
think about how they're talking about it and give my opinion on it.
Institutional investors, I mean, these guys, they know how to ask questions. They know how to figure out.
They're smart.
They're smart guys. They might not be experts in anything, but they know how to get smart real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think... if you think, they're going to trust millions, tens of millions to idiots or guys who can't figure out something as simple as scaling for coins, like you're mistaken. Those guys are on top of it. They can figure out how to smuggle camels from South Africa to Europe. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Is that something you've been thinking about recently?
No, I saw a documentary where a guy, he was a trader, and then he just I want to do real trader, and he just went and did
like
stuff
real goods and services.
Yeah, and he just did stuff like that. And it's like
he just likes
smuggling what?
Well, he wasn't smuggling, but he actually moved some camels from South Africa to Egypt, and he already worked in the profit, and then he's doing wine from South Africa to I think
Han Solo.
He sold some rafts from Mexico in China, bulk sell. He did a couple of them. Some worked out, some didn't, but.
That is an actual trader.
Trading is a mindset.
Yeah,
you got to be. You got to be all into it.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess even if you're not the most technologically knowledgeable person, if you have billions of dollars, that are on your shoulders, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself doing the research. Right? There's enough incentive.
If you have the incentive.
Yeah, exactly.
The interest.
I'd also like to add the previous wave. It brought in a lot of low information, low knowledge buyers, but it also this wave will keep a certain percentage of those people that are actually intellectually interested
Right.
in technology, economics, finance, just basically what's going on in the world. And right now there's people, men and women, and boys and girls all over the world that are on their laptops or computers or phones learning about all this stuff.
Right.
They just bought Bitcoin, maybe at 10,000 or 15,000, and they have the right mindset. Right?
The key thing is people over the holidays had time to actually think about it for the first time.
Like the bonus money too, I feel like.
Right, bonus money. But the key thing was because we started seeing a pump at Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving. And if you notice, like, the main issue was people just had time to digest it a little bit and, see other people coming in, watch it, and see things go up. And I think we mentioned that even before the holidays that this would probably happen.
Yeah.
And then after the holidays, it would die down. So for a lot of us that are in here, people that are watching, like, it might be an easy move to get in now, learn what you can, and then, take profits next holiday season, hold out, and get back in on the dip.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see whether or not the sort of January recession pattern holds true next time around, now that it's been identified as possibly an actual pattern. So I guess one last thing before we move on is that we've talked about, how would you say it, investors and investors kind of getting shook out of the markets. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll also remain to be seen whether some of the projects get shaken out as well.
Yeah.
Because I know some of them are probably holding a decent amount of their reserves in cryptocurrency, so all of a sudden they're seeing their reserves drop. And obviously I would think investment would probably drop quite a bit as well with general interest in the space.
Yeah, these drawdowns are a healthy part of capitalism. It kills the weak.
Yes.
It reveals the strong.
Yep.
Right, and we'll get more money and energy going to the strong.
Yep.
Right, and it's just how shit works. There's going to be a lot of projects exposed over time, right? They're all kind of experiments, and the strong will survive, right? And it'll play out in the marketplace, and it doesn't seem like any big projects at this time have been shown to be, naked under the covers, so to speak.
Right.
But we'll see. There might be some fallout that comes out of this.
Yeah, I think there will definitely be some fallout. So I guess one of the silver linings during this last week was that although the prices were going down, maybe that's an understatement, it was a very sharp drop, very, very quick. And there had been a lot of bad news, I think, the last few weeks, right? There had been some ICOs getting shut down. There's been some scams that went bust. I think China banned things in their country again, and I think there were rumors, at least, of South Korea as well.
According to the media, China and Korea are always banning things.
Yeah, apparently they banned it again today, which I still don't
That's
know.
a buy signal.
Yeah.
Buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I guess the silver lining was that actually as of today, there was a Senate hearing where obviously some people from the Senate, your regulators coming from like the SEC and CFTC, excuse me, there's a lot of abbreviations.
Yeah.
They talked about cryptocurrency today, and it was, in my opinion, I thought it was a pretty good hearing, and I think the general consensus among cryptocurrency advocates was that it went pretty well. So I was curious if you guys had watched it or listened to it or read articles about it.
Do you want to go on this first?
Yeah, I took. I saw a lot of YouTube and Twitter snippets from it, and it definitely, from what I heard, it definitely sounded positive for most of the crypto space. The only issue was they seemed to definitely have a disliking for ICO scams.
Yeah.
So, which is actually a good thing because it means there's some protection there, which is, I mean, you hear about some of these ICOs and them running off, and then, I mean, it's getting so crazy.
It's at least them barking at scammers.
Right.
Right? They might not be able to protect every individual dumbass investor, right,
Exactly.
that falls for this shit, but they're at least showing, hey fuckers, like,
And
don't do some scammy bullshit.
And
We're going to come after you. Right?
They actually named one, like, it was called My Bitcoin.
Yeah, my Bitcoin.
And it was like, okay,
Said it
well,
twice, I think.
yeah, he's going after it. It's like, okay, they actually talked about that one in particular, and I feel like for guys like us, it's probably pretty hard to scam us. Not saying it can't be scammed, but it's
Knock on
harder to
wood.
scam guys.
We
like
get
us.
involved in better scams.
Right,
basically.
yeah.
We've already been scammed.
or
many
Exactly.
or
times.
get out of them in time.
Exactly,
you know?
exactly.
So it's
And don't put all our money in them all at one time.
right.
Yeah.
But then when you hear about somebody and you introduce them to crypto, and then they're like, oh yeah, what about this BitConnect? One of my friends I introduced to Bitcoin. It's like, what about BitConnect? I'm like, dude, Bitcoin, Litecoin,
Yeah.
Ether,
Just stick to the
forget it.
basics.
He's like,
Just
well,
stick
what about this one over here? It's like, do you want a bunch of coins or do you want some profit
Yeah.
in the long run? So he agreed would be profit, and so he stuck with that. Hopefully, I don't know what he did
Yeah,
with
I'd
his money, but
say hopefully for sure. It's one of the scams that went bust. So one thing that I thought was, on one hand, it was kind of humorous, but on the other hand, I'm sure the regulators don't find it funny, was they said something about, there's been so many ICOs that have been launched, whether worldwide or within the United States. And at one point they said, do you know how many of them registered with the SEC? And of course, the answer was zero.
Yeah,
and they're like, do you know how many are planning on filing? And the answer again was zero.
Oh, yeah.
So it is kind of interesting. These regulators want people to play by their rules. But I mean, we're talking about a global market here. So if someone wants to have an ICO, I know by law, if they have like customers or investors that are in the United States, they're supposed to file with the SEC or something like that.
Right.
But I mean, these ICOs, this is global currency. Like if you start an ICO somewhere outside the United States, these regulators can talk a big game, but it's going to be an uphill battle for them to crack down on any of those ICOs.
100%. But their job is to protect U.S. citizens and U.S. investors.
Right.
Right. So if they can kind of minimize that, they've done their job. They can't stop really, really committed people that want to involve themselves in Ponzi schemes and scams
Right.
or ICOs. But if they are able to curtail, just this flowering of, their coins, but at the end of the day, they're really securities of a underlying company. Because what
Right.
Satoshi did from the onset was to develop a protocol that he didn't control, and there was no money behind and couldn't be shut down. So if you have a company and you're pumping a coin, right, and there's really it seems to be a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, legal semantics about, what it is, they're going to consider it a security. And, I'm not a big fan of the SEC, but, I also don't have any ill will towards them, and I think they're just adults trying to do their job.
I think
but-
I think that one of the best things they can do is be crypto friendly, have the biggest crypto companies here,
Yep.
kind of like with the internet companies.
I think they see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've personally watched a lot of C-SPAN.
Yeah.
Because
good.
I'm a huge fucking nerd, right? I've actually
Gotta be.
watched like Senate hearings and House hearings, and they're usually pretty reasonable. There's always like one senator that wants to make a point for his pet issue
Right.
that can go on like Fox News or MSNBC or whatnot.
There was one in this hearing as well.
Which one in particular you're talking about?
Elizabeth Warren.
Warren, of course. She always
Yeah.
change. She's notorious for like just changing the subject and
my
talking
God.
what she wants to talk about.
Yeah.
But I thought it was an incredible day for cryptocurrency and an incredible day for the U.S. government really getting behind this technological revolution. And they're really, it seems like to me, the U.S. is at the forefront. U.S. and Japan probably in terms
Yeah.
of most forward-thinking nation states on cryptocurrency.
Right.
And the CFTC chairman, I believe, Giancarlo, that everyone in crypto loves now.
Yeah.
He had some great lines about how none of the, all this blockchain stuff, distributed ledger, wouldn't exist without Bitcoin, which was a big win for people in Bitcoin. Or like, listen, you guys are pumping all this blockchain stuff. I mean, if Bitcoin doesn't work, none of this other stuff is going to work
Right,
either.
exactly.
And you also had a recognition that young people, especially the technologically aware young people, are very, very excited about this, and they don't want to tamp down that excitement because they don't necessarily understand it.
Yeah.
And there was also a point, or there was also a political star, which was Mark Warner, Senator Mark Warner. He's a Democrat, and he was very complimentary of cryptocurrencies and technology in general. And it's no coincidence that he actually has a background in technology, telecommunications, and venture capital. So, yes, a win for the United States, a win for us who live in the United States, and a win for crypto all the way around. It was a orderly, C-SPAN filmed event. Pretty boring for the average person, but for crypto people, it was a very bullish meeting between adults that really aren't pumping anything. They're just talking about technology and regulation and whatnot, what they're going to stamp down on, and they're really not going to come after Bitcoin. So all these people that think that these nation states or banks are going to crack down on this stuff, it's not in the political will, and it's not even in any of their internal memos, right, or anything that we've seen. And we've talked on this show about some of the good things that central bankers have put out in academic journals, right? So the U.S. is really at the forefront, and I'm happy to see it as a citizen, right?
So I am curious, Tay, because I already asked Brett this earlier, but if you see a bunch of politicians in some sort of Senate hearing, and they're talking about maybe how they're friendly towards cryptocurrency, is there a risk there that they're just saying that because they're on camera? Do you think there's a concern that they could say one thing in public but then go around and do a different thing behind closed doors?
They
or
can
is that
definitely
rare?
do that because it's a lot of money at stake, right? And it's wild. It's not funneled through their hands just yet.
Yeah.
So anything they basically give people free reign. All right, go out there, do your thing. We want to generate this excitement, and then as time goes on, well, hold up. I need you to stop doing this. I need you to stop doing that. It has to come through these lanes.
Right.
So overall, we know what the government, they're in the business of taxing the citizens, and tax can come in all different types of forms. So whenever we got a new source of income that's not getting taxed or not under any tax law just yet, a lot of times they will let that industry develop and grow. And then they'd be like, okay, now it's time, you played around enough. Now it's time to actually pay. All right. Just like you would with a child that's growing, it makes mistakes. You don't spank its butt until it's, 6, 7 years old, maybe, which is understandable. And it's going to be interesting. Just like the internet back in the day, there was no rules. I mean, even on Navy ships, people were downloading all kind of stuff early on when it came out, and then it was like, okay, now there's rules. All right, you gotta do this. You can't do this. You can't plug in things to the computer, which is all understandable because those are protective measures you need to take as an industry develops. So same thing will happen here.
Yeah, I think that's a good metaphor because obviously there are a lot of analogies between the internet and cryptocurrency, which some people call the internet of money. I guess, when you look hindsight 2020, it seems like the United States government probably did take the right approach toward the internet because the internet was more or less, I'm not going to say, was invented in the United States, right?
I mean, the military or the military-industrial complex and the academics in the United States had a big role to play in the development of the internet, and it was kind of bequeathed onto the world. The private sector took it on. Built their own, built the internet as we know it and the web, got away with intranets, and the U.S. has always been a land of entrepreneurs and risk takers and technologists, and we're from what I could tell from this hearing, we're still in the lead again, and that's great news.
Yeah, by letting the internet grow, we've ended up with a bunch of the world's largest companies supplying some of the biggest jobs or number of jobs.
I'm
and
sure
they're
they
all,
like those
they're all
tax
home.
receipts too.
Yeah. So it can definitely end up being a win-win. Hopefully they realize that.
Yeah, I mean I think it happens with a lot of industries, and I always like going back to the car analogy. But early on, there was no seat belts, there was no turn signals, there was no horns.
Nope.
And then
Polluting everywhere.
And then all those things became mandatory. Airbags, side airbags, crumple zones. We're still, making rules for cars as they get smarter, faster, burn less fuel, all of that.
Yeah, no. So one of the things that I think one of the, I don't know if they're congressmen or they're called honorables, but I don't know what kind of title that is.
The chairman of the CFTC.
That's what it must be. But there was one point where they were talking about how their kids are really excited about cryptocurrency.
Yep.
I thought that was kind of a good, maybe a peek into what it's like in the life of of a regulator.
Yeah,
Put it
that was
way.
an awesome clip for anyone to watch, where the CFTC chairman was talking about how we don't want to be in the business of shutting this down for the next generation. The next generation is all into this. They are excited about it, and they want to invest, and they don't see themselves in the position of trying to stop that. What they do see themselves in the position of stopping are straight up scams, or selling a security and not really saying it's a security, right? And going through this legalese and not registering. If you're not creating a decentralized network, right? And you just have a company that has a coin that, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This is, they're going to come after you.
Yep.
And I think, to me, that's fine. What Satoshi did was work around that. So if you're not working around that, and you're not working around that, and you still don't want to play by the old rules, well, you're going to get crushed, and you're not really adding much value anyways.
Yeah.
So it's all good on my end. But that was a great part, and I think they covered that a few times about how the youth, and when I say youth, millennials or 2030s, people that are technologically aware and active are excited, and they don't want to tamp down that enthusiasm at all.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, a little bit, maybe not quite a tangent, but one concern that I heard them bring up multiple times was not just money laundering that individuals or businesses are doing, but money laundering by people trying to avoid sanctions. So I think there was some concern by them. The whole time they were talking about that, I was just thinking of North Korea, because I feel like that's
Russia.
the elephant, right? Those are like the elephants in the room. So I'm curious, do you guys think, is that a legitimate reason to crack down on cryptocurrency? That there are governments somewhere that the United States government doesn't like, and they're using cryptocurrency to avoid sanctions? And maybe, I guess, the other part of the question would be, is there anything that the community should be doing to help one side with this, or no? Or
I think the flip side is the government, or I should say, the internet and cryptocurrencies could be used as a tool to uplift citizens in Venezuela and North Korea indirectly, right? So I think it would be, destructive on many fronts if that was the reason why they cracked down on that. Just in my opinion, and these are all lawyers, so they're lawyers and politicians, so they're paid to ask questions, so to speak, and this is just as a politician of a major nation state, right? You want to that has traditionally deployed sanctions on some of its, I don't know, rivals, but geopolitical adversaries. I would say it's a natural concern, but it didn't. It definitely didn't make headlines, and I don't think it's it's something they can do much about. And I think it's, like I said before, the internet and cryptocurrencies are a tool to uplift people out of North Korea or Venezuela, or if you think of Russia as a backwards nation state.
Right. I mean, I hope that the government actually uses true discretion with that. You know what I mean? If they're actually going after state money launderers or, any type of nefarious groups that are doing something, that's a clear distinction from the everyday user, investor, and all that. So, it's not even if they want to do that and they see a reason for it, hopefully it's the right reasons, is for all that. But as soon as they start coming after regular people, if they come after regular people and they're inciting that, then we know we got a problem. But that hasn't happened, and hopefully that won't happen.
And all these guys are about striking a balance. That's what the regulators are all about. And especially, in the United States, a free market is kind of a generally a good term, and regulators are, they're kind of just watching out over markets,
right,
and they want to be precise in their movements. And even if they might be targeting a country for sanctions, I don't think they're going to try to shut down a decentralized network. I don't see that happening.
We good on the field?
Yeah, let me see here. Yeah, with social media too, I think that. Give me a moment here.
What's going on?
I think it's the camera.
Screen is black.
Uh-oh.
We still got 7 people in the feed though. Maybe they should pump out some questions.
Yo, shout out to my crypto freaks.
Want to flip the switch? Flip the switch on the camera real quick, Brett.
Which one?
The camera.
Find the on and off switch.
Did we lose camera?
It's all right.
Anybody in the chat, y'all? Do you see video?
No, it's not. The video's lost.
Oh, really?
It's on here, so should I press this? What should I press?
Just the on and off switch. Make it go off and then on. Yeah.
One, two, three.
On Facebook, it still shows.
Yeah, it's not gonna see. There we go.
Yeah, it still has people.
good.
It still has people in the chat
Yeah.
on Facebook though.
No, we're good. Sorry about that, guys. This is our first time doing it live, so the my camera likes to go on standby mode after a while.
And me as the head engineer, I had to fix it. So.
Back on topic, if you don't mind. I think one of the things that I noticed was these regulators when they were discussing protecting how do I say it? Protecting investors. I noticed that they didn't say anything about protecting how would I say it? About protecting businesses. So if there was not much of an emphasis on, hey, okay, these people
What do you
want to
mean by
start
that?
up. Like if someone wants to do an ICO, the companies are setting up shop in the United States. I did notice there was, I'm trying to protect Main Street. I'm trying to protect Main Street, but there was not much of a reference to how would I say it, to protecting businesses at all. Like that's not in there.
I feel because the SEC's
Businesses don't vote as much.
let's just
Maybe
say,
I don't know.
Well, no, I think there are departments that, like the Department of Commerce, would be focused on business, but the SEC is specifically focused on markets and investors.
Right.
And I think what they're worried about in terms of Bitcoin and digital currencies are the small retail investors that really have no idea what the hell's going on, and they want to protect them.
Yeah.
You know, mommy and daddy kind of stepping in and tamping down all the irrational exuberance.
Right. Okay, so I think that's enough about the Senate hearings. Usually I'm not a big fan of this sort of government regulatory jumping on the mic saying whatever they're saying. But I think I would probably mirror a lot of the sentiment that I'm seeing online, which was that in general, this was a decent hearing. Could have gone a lot worse. And I think it might have caused some upward pressure on the price of cryptocurrency. I could be wrong, though. It's hard to tell exactly what is causing that. So I guess our next topic was something that I don't keep too close track of is some of these big, I guess, and this one is the World Economic Forum. So sometimes there are these big conferences. I know they had like a day for crypto as well, but I don't think that was the focus of the conference. Brett, I know you've been paying a little bit closer attention to these sorts of government regulatory what's the term I'm looking for? Government regulatory
global elites coming together
events,
and talk about
right.
shit. Yeah, so my background is in finance, and I kind of jumped ship from the traditional finance into crypto, and but I still like to keep. I try to keep one foot in each, kind of figure out what's going on, what the big players are talking about in the, I guess, the macro economy, what hedge fund managers are talking about, what central bankers are talking about, and I guess how long ago was it? Like a week or so? Are we having trouble on the?
Yeah.
I'll try it out right quick. I'm gonna
What,
go
did it
fix
turn
the
off
video.
the
Yeah.
video
Yeah,
again?
it's weird. It turned on and then off. I think if we press record, it will be forced to stay on. So up in the top right, there should be the red kind of record button.
Open up the thing.
Yeah. Let's see here. So we have the audio from there.
You guys can still go with the audio though.
Yeah, no, we do still have audio. So now it's back on. Press the record button.
Okay. Yep. According to the card.
It's not. It causes an issue there.
It's a battery. That's what it is.
Is it really the battery?
The battery's blinking red.
Hey, Tay.
Boom.
Hopefully that's the right one. This might be the right one. Oh, that's gonna be too hard.
If you guys call in right now, you'll get a free Trezor.
Should we just end it right here? Stop the stream?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to end the stream here. Thanks for tuning in. Check out Captain Crypto Show on YouTube, Facebook.